Hello guys, welcome to another weekly breakdown video. Today I'll be back testing the last week, not the last week, but the third week of February, and it will be a very interesting week, and it will be a very interesting video. Please watch the video very carefully. I will drop a lot of gems in this video, and you will get to learn a lot of things. Mark my words, and yeah, let's go on. First of all, before doing anything, let me show you the callouts, what I've written. The callouts are such things, are the important points that I write down throughout the week if I find something important or interesting, right? If I learn something or if I get something to know about the markets, then I decide to tell it to you guys for free. So whenever the market is trending from one high to one low, for example, in the hourly, the market is bullish. This is the higher low, this is the higher high, right? So whatever the market does here, whatever bullshit the market does here, doesn't matter. It's still bullish from this low till this high. So this is what I've written, and in this week, that happens. And yeah, and whatever is happening in there, it will be considered bullish, but after a certain amount of time, it will be considered as consolidating, because the market is just moving throughout one highs and one lows, right? So yeah, market conditions and phases changes, so does the effectiveness of your strategy. So losing now doesn't change that it is a profitable strategy. Yep, look at the market, bro. You may have the best strategy in the world. Even though you have the best strategy in the world, if the market is doing something like this is literally, the market is not giving any opportunity at this time, then I don't think there is some holy grail in the markets that can be put in this kind of market. So yep, saying that, let me show you the news. And Monday there was no news. Tuesday there was durable goods orders, prelim GDP. Thursday there was CPI news, and Friday there was ISM manufacturing PMI and revised consumer sentiment. Okay, so now going on the daily. Okay, let me show you the weekly bias now, the most important thing. The weekly bias, my weekly bias is bullish on GBP USD. Not clear, obviously. The bias is not that clear, but according to how the last previous candle closed, it is a bullish more than bearish, right? It looks bullish, so my bias is bullish. Whereas on DXY, it should be bearish. If they are correlating, then it should be bearish, but it is not. Even on DXY, the candle closed as a bullish candle. So this is why I was very concerned, and after seeing this DXY candle, I went to EU for help, but even EU was not that clear. So at this point, what I do, my bias was bullish on DXY and bullish on GBP USD. So that is basically, my bias is not clear. So now I will trade the daily time frame. I will trade the daily bias, and if I show you the daily time frame, clearly the market was doing fuck all here, and recently the market changed character to the downside, making a lower lows. And whatever happens here, for example, just now I have explained you one concept, right? The market was trading between this high and this low, so whatever happens in here, it is still bearish. Yeah, look at this, bro. Right now, by seeing at the market at first glance, it's looking like it's going up, but on Friday, if I want to trade on Friday, which I don't, most of the times I don't trade Monday, because I wait for the bias to get clear and show me where the market wants to head. And here on Friday, we can see it close as a bearish candle. That's a bearish candle. And on DXY, my bias is clearly bullish on Monday because of the previous two candles. So also on the DXY, I have marked this fair value gap when it was going up, but right now it's going down. So it will be better to mark this demand zone right here, which I didn't. But yeah, obviously I will mark it. First of all, I marked this demand zone, but this demand zone didn't get respected. This liquidity gets swept, and you can argue that this demand zone here is getting respected, and it's getting a reaction from here. So going on Monday, my bias on DXY is bullish, and bias on GBP USD is bearish. So not wasting any time, let me go to the 4 hourly. Now on the 4 hourly, I start to look for market structure, which is higher highs, higher lows. Higher lows, this low here caused the high right here, making a higher high, break of structure to the upside. And yeah, the market is trending bullish, and on Monday if I'm looking for something, that will be sells. So obviously that is when on the 4 hourly there is no fair value gap, there are no zones, so it is not clear, it was not clear. So I go to the hourly. On the hourly also I decided not to trade. Okay, so I decided just to cold turkey not trade Monday, to get a better understanding of the markets on Tuesday. That's a very smart decision, to be honest. And that's a very smart decision right there. And here, according to how this Monday candle closed, now we can see this is clearly a bullish candle close on Monday. And if I'm looking for something on Tuesday, will be bullish, which is aligning with the weekly bias. Yep, which is also aligning with the weekly bias being bullish. Weekly bias is not clear, so seeing on DXY, this was a clear bearish candle. So on Tuesday I'm looking for sales on DXY. That will be automatically buys on GBP USD. So this is when I go to the 4 hourly time frame to mark any fair value gaps or any zones. The previous week high is up here. The previous week high is so close, so it makes sense to go and take the previous week high first, right? So that was also one thing which was an indication that it might go up. And now obviously if I'm looking for buys, then I will have to mark the zones. Then this is when I wait for the Asian range to close. The Asian range closed something like this, and after the Asian range has closed, I was looking for demand zones to buy. There was no clear demand zones, you can argue, because the market was trending. As I have said you already, the market was trending from this low to this high. So whatever happens here, the market is bullish, but it is also consolidating. So the only demand zone, valid demand zone, would be this one right here. But even though that demand zone didn't get respected, this demand zone was made on Friday. On Monday, Asian range, it got respected and it did play out. The strategy, the concept did play out, but yeah, just it was not our session. And on the M15, if I go now, then on Tuesday, it was a continuation setup. As you can see, there was a huge M15 fair value gap right here, something like this. And after sweeping this fair value gap, obviously I will see what's happening after sweeping this fair value gap. Swept the fair value gap, rejected, gave a rejection, M15 rejection. That is when I look for entries. It would not be a high probability trade, but if I had taken the trade, it would be a loss. As you can see, as I've told you, it is not a high probability trade. Why? Because it is not a high probability trade because of the bias is not clear. The higher time frames, whenever the higher time frames is not clear, that is when it's a low probability trade. Whenever the higher time frame is clear, you can see where the market is headed. That is when you want to take a trade, right? So in this case scenario, this was not clear. And yeah, even though I took the trade, I lost the trade. I learned from the trade. The most important thing, there is no winning or there is no losing, bro. Once you have a burning desire and you know you are gonna do that, you are gonna do that thing, that's when that feedback and data comes in. Every failure becomes a data and every mistake becomes a feedback. Right here, the market came down. The demand zone I have told you again made on Friday got respected on Tuesday. So the main move happened from here, but yeah, I have not traded that, so it doesn't matter. And on Tuesday, there was no such high impact news. There were durable goods and CB consumer confidence. And going on Wednesday, now there is prelim GDP. And the London session, there is no news on Wednesday. So let's see on Wednesday what happens, okay? So going on the daily time frame to show you the daily bias. Here, look at this, bro. What's happening in the markets? Right now, even while backtesting, I'm getting pissed off. I don't know if I would trade. If something like this happens on the live markets, you know what I'll do? I will trade Euro USD, because Euro USD is much clearer than GBP USD right now. You can see it's clear. It was clearly trending down, whereas it was doing fuck all. So, or I would shift to indices like US 30, Nasdaq, and the S&P 500. But right now the market is clearly bullish on Wednesday. So going on Thursday, I will look for buys again on GBP USD, and the DXY bias again was not clear. You can see it was a doji. That is when I go to the euro. Euro is clearly bullish, and this is when I'm looking for buys. So let's see. That is when I go to the 4 hourly time frame. The previous week low is here, the previous week high is here, and going on the hourly again. Going on the hourly, waiting for the Asian range to close. On Thursday, I was looking for buys, right? So if I'm looking for buys, I will look for demand zones. The Asian low got swept. Clearly, we can see the Asian low got swept, gave a rejection. If you had taken a trade here, you would literally lost it. Even on Thursday, even on Wednesday, the bias was not that clear, because I would not trade Wednesday because the bias was not clear, as you can see, and the bias was not clear. Obviously, that is the sign that you don't need to trade. So that is when I decided not to trade, and yeah, not trading was in my favor, as you can see. If I had taken a trade here after seeing this hourly rejection, which is valid, to be honest, it would be a loss, directly a loss. And this is when I go to the daily time frame again for Thursday's bias. So Wednesday close, something like that, and yeah. So on Thursday, now I'm looking for buys again. Okay, so I did a mistake. So this candle, I was one candle above, I guess. So going on Thursday now, my bias is clearly bullish on GBP USD and clearly bearish. This is when you want to trade, bro. Now DXY and GBP USD are aligning, right? Whereas on Tuesday, they were not aligning. They were literally doing the opposite. So you didn't trade it. Now they are kind of doing the same thing and correlating each other. This is when you want to go and look for a trade. On the 4 hourly, you can see the market is still trending within these zones as I've marked. So yeah, it is still bullish. And now going to the hourly to see for some market structure shift, you can see here there will be a demand here. Just by looking at first glance, I can say there will be a demand somewhere on here, which I've marked 100%. Yep. So I will wait for the Asian range to close, and you can see this was the high that caused this lower low. This lower high here got swept, higher high. Now this is the higher high, this is the higher low. So I would look for trade for something like this on Thursday. So we'll wait for the Asian range to close. After the Asian range close, this is when I go to the M30 time frame. So on the M30 time frame, this was the M15 demand. So look, the market structure is not yet clear. The market is not cleanly trending. It is a very, very messy price action. But even though, because we are experienced, we know that the change of character, or you can say anything that happened here, obviously there is a market structure shift. Otherwise I would not mark that demand zone. And even if I mark that demand zone, I would consider it as a weak demand zone, right? So the move literally happened. The move literally happened on 1 p.m. Indian Standard Time, which is our time is 1:30, because the daylight savings are off right now. And yeah, the move did happen. Our liquidity didn't got swept on Thursday, so this was a winning trade. The Asian low, typical setup, bro. The Asian low got swept, and this was a huge bearish candle on the M15. On 1:30, we got the move. Maybe we wouldn't have caught this trade, but yeah, a win is a win. So it was a 1:3. Won the trade on Thursday. So this is when I go to look for the trade on Friday. Right now the videos are not that of an interesting, because the market is not interesting. When the markets are interesting, the videos also will be interesting. Please stay tuned for that. And going on Friday, we can clearly see the bias is clearly bearish according to how that Thursday candle closed, and according to how that Thursday candle closed on DXY, my bias is bullish on DXY and bearish on GBP USD. And one more tip, whenever the high weekly bias is not clear, we trade the daily bias. I've already told you, you guys know that. But even when you are trading the daily bias, you wait for GU and DXY to align. That gives us so much confidence while taking our trade. Yeah, that's. And going on Friday, obviously I am looking for buys. I will wait for Asian range to close. Sorry, I'm not looking for buys. What I'm looking for? Okay, I'm looking for sells because of how this candle closed. My bias changed, right? My bias literally changed from bullish to bearish to bullish again. So yeah, whenever the higher time frame bias is not clear, your bias can change something like that, and that's totally fine. Obviously wait for the Asian range to close. Asian range close something like this, and this is when I mark the zones that I want to trade from. The supply zone, you can argue this is the H1 supply zone. There is a H1 fair value gap right here. According to how this Asian range closed, I will go to the M30 to look for supply zones. No supply zone. This was the M15 fair value gap / M30 fair value gap. So this was a fair value gap trade, and you can argue that there was a supply zone here, but already this got mitigated. This supply zone already got mitigated, so that's a low probability zone right there. So the Asian range got swept, entered the M15 fair value gap and rejected, clearly given a huge weak rejection. That is when I enter here with a 6.5 pip stop loss for a 1:3 risk to reward, and let's see what happens. So it was a win. To be honest, it was a win. 1:2.78. You will not always get the perfect 1:3, so you have to adapt. So this was a win. Thursday and Friday was a win, whereas Wednesday, when the bias was not clear, it was a loss, and whenever the bias was clear, it was a win. So even though the conditions of the market is not that clear, the higher time frames are doing don't know what, even though we are winning trades. So this strategy is literally profitable. All you have to do is stay consistent, only trade the high probability setups, and wait for the A-class setup. You don't need to trade always, and you don't need to win always. To make money in the markets consistently, you need to be consistent with your trading plan, and you have to be patient. That's it. Hope you guys learned something from this trade, something from this video, and yeah, please let me know